Well, my field is Islamic history, and so I've spent a great deal of time over the course of my life in the Middle East. This is my first time in South Asia. Habib compares very, very favorably, I think, with the best that American liberal arts colleges have to offer. Liberal here has nothing to do with the political connotation of liberal. It comes from artis liberalis in Latin. Liberalis means free, arts of free people. You know, what are the arts and skills that free people need to survive? You know, if you think back a few years ago, there was a big company in the United States, I think it probably existed here too, called Blockbuster Video, right? They don't exist anymore, right? Because that's a technology that went out of existence. So if you were trained to be a video deck, repair person, you're out of business, right? If you watch what's happening with autonomous vehicles right now, every time you get into an Uber or Careem, or even when you get into your own car, you begin to wonder, okay, how long is it that people are going to be driving cars, right? Probably in the lifetime of today's students, they will not be driving cars, and there will not be Uber drivers. There will be Uber drivers, but they will not be human beings, right? They will be autonomous machines that drive people around. So that's the world that we're living in. How do you prepare somebody for that kind of a world? And that's what a Habib education thinks about. It doesn't think about, how do I train somebody for a job that's available today? We're thinking about, how do we train people for careers that don't even exist today? What a liberal arts education does is try to impart to its students certain core skills. The first of which I would say is critical thinking. That's the ability to not to criticize. Criticizing may be part of it. Some people think, oh, critical thinking means to be critical of something. And what it really means is to be able to examine an issue from many different standpoints or vantages and understand the heart of the issue. So critical thinking gets people to think outside the box, to see things in the way that other people cannot see them. So if you teach an engineer just to be an engineer, they're probably pretty capable of being a certain kind of an engineer. They're technically proficient at what they do. But if you teach an engineer philosophy or poetry or economics, it stretches their minds in different ways. And it turns out that when they come back to the field of engineering, they bring those insights with them. We believe that fields like history, standalone departments of history and philosophy and literature really are products of a bygone age. They were very suitable for the industrial age world that we were talking about a minute ago. But in this age, we can bring them into conversation with each other. And for example, history, you can't know who you are unless you know who you've been, right? Where you come from. And so our students today, whether they're computer scientists or electrical engineers or economists or chemists or biologists, they need to know something about who they are, where they come from, what their roots are. And so that's what we try to do in the comparative humanities by looking at some of the great, so as we were talking about earlier, part of what it means to be a liberally educated person is that you can think in lots of different ways, right? One of the great ways of learning how to think is by looking at the great thoughts of human beings through history. And that's what we do in the comparative humanities. We look at the greatest thoughts of humanity across history through literature, through history, through philosophy. What better way to learn how to think than looking at some of the thoughts of the greatest human beings that have ever lived, right? I'm captivated by Habib students, and I think they're a very special group. I recognize that they're an elite group of people. They're elite in Pakistan. They're elite in the world. They can hold their own against, undergraduates anywhere in the world. And we're very blessed here. I mean, it's an extraordinarily rich talent pool. Because Habib is a needs-blind university, it's able to reach in and really select the very best talent that a country like Pakistan has, and that talent pool is very deep. It's a country of 220 million people. You would expect it to be quite deep. And for many of our students, they would really have no chance at an education like this. And so that's what's another magical thing I think about Habib. It's not just a university for the elite. Actually, I should say it is a university for the elite, but not just the economic elite. The students who come here are the intellectual elite on a global level, but many of them don't have the resources that would make it possible to come to a university like this. Today, to go to a liberal arts college like Habib would cost about $70,000 a year. And so one does have to ask, is $250,000 for an education that you can get for a fraction of that cost here in Pakistan, is it worth it? And I think less and less the answer is yes. I think more people are going to say, if I can get the same or better here in Pakistan, why would I spend $250,000? Why not save that, for another purpose? Habib is very closely connected to some of the leading centers of higher education thinking in the United States: Stanford, University of Michigan, Berkeley, and then the Claremont colleges, which is a consortium of 5 outstanding liberal arts colleges in California. So when the leadership of Habib began trying to create a college for the 21st century, they were very careful because they were aware that American higher education was undergoing massive, and not just American, global higher education was undergoing massive transformation. So they didn't want to create a model that was already obsolete, right? They wanted to meet the new developments in higher education. So they were very much on the cutting edge. They were closely connected to the Stanford Design School, the D School. The head of the D School has been here, came very early on, and gave them some advice and suggestions and so forth. So it didn't take me long to realize, okay, this is a university that is not just cutting edge for Pakistan, which it is in its own right, but was really sort of thinking outside the box about where this kind of education was going to be in the 21st century and making that. So that was very exciting to me, the opportunity to participate in that process.